Is losing a friend more painful than losing a romantic relationship? Dive into this episode to find out more. Have you ever wondered why we don't talk about friendship breakups as much as we do relationship breakups? Losing a friend can hurt, and it's about time we started talking about it. Find out more about why a friendship breakup hurts so much in this episode. Sometimes when you lose a friend, you think there's nobody else to talk about it, but the hurt you feel, it matters. So find out more about what you can do when you're going through this.
Welcome to Life by 8, your blueprint for living the most extraordinary life. I am Rebecca Grugan, your life architect on this journey to designing your ultimate life. If you are ready to level up using values levels, understanding yourself with the energetic blueprint, our 8 pillars to human wellness framework, this is for you. You are in the right place, so let's go.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that's very, very dear to me in regards to what I've gone through recently and also what I've spoken to a lot of people about. And that is friendship in adulthood and why a friendship breakup hurts so much. Many of us have experienced this throughout our lifetime. A lot of it happens in teenage years. It starts in primary school as we start to have best friends and then change friends that almost seems like on the daily. And I'm noticing that with my children at the moment as they discover and look at what friendship looks like to them and means for them. But as an adult, it's something that we experience but rarely discuss. And as I've gone through Reddit threads and listened to a number of podcasts recently, Simon Sinek talks about friendships and the importance of them and what they look like for us as adults in his recent episodes. And also Stephen Bartlett from The Diary of a CEO spoke into how a lot of the men who he speaks to after his live shows, what they really want to know is, how do I make friendships? And this is interesting, right? Is that as making friends seems like it's almost impossible, or how do we do it when we evolve and change as we grow as a human being, and we may outgrow friendships, we may change the table that we sit at, we may have different belief systems. And, one of the big things going on at the moment in the world is these political differences and how that is shaking up not only families and relationships, but friendships as a whole. And for me, going through this recently in the loss of a very close friend, not from death, but from just different opinions and different ways of doing life, and how much that grief has hit me. And I'm somebody who hasn't experienced grief from the loss of parents at this stage or even loss of family that's super close to. But it's the closest thing I can feel and name as grief. And it has been something that for 6 months has absolutely floored me on certain days and in certain moments. And going through another moment of that at this stage felt like the right time to talk into this, because I know I'm not the only one who has these experiences, and neither are you. And so I want to start talking about this more, because friendship breakups, they hurt. Not just romantic breakups with partners, but they are just as painful, if not more. I want you to think back to a close friendship you've had, where you've shared secrets and celebrated each other's milestones in life, and you may have offered support through difficult times. But what do we do when that friendship ends? Unlike romantic breakups, we don't have a cultural script on how to handle friendship breakups. There are barely any movies, songs, or rituals dedicated to helping us cope, and yet the pain of losing a close friend can be incredibly profound. Because as somebody who speaks into, and a lot of my work dictates how much time I have to spend with friends, they play a unique role in my life, as they may for you. And unlike family or romantic partners, we choose our friends. These are people who understand us deeply, and they offer a safe space for us to be ourselves without judgment. They're often our go-to people for emotional support, and especially as adult life gets more complex and the responsibilities pile up, friends help us feel understood, validated, and connected in a world that can sometimes feel really isolating. When a friendship ends, its natural course, or a disagreement or a conflict happens and there's no resolution, or somebody gets a new partner and it changes the dynamics. It's when a friendship ends, it's not just about losing someone to talk to or to hang out with, but it's about losing a part of ourselves. And as adults, our friends represent our chosen family, the people who know the real us beyond our careers, our relationships, or our responsibilities. And as adults, many of us have friends who have children, and we create bonds with those children and their extended families as well. And losing that connection can feel like losing a mirror that reflected back an important part of who we are. Another reason friendship breakups hurt so much is that they rarely come with the same closure as romantic breakups. In romantic relationships, there's often an expectation to have the talk, the one that to officially end things. And even in some cases, we get to discuss what went wrong. But friendships tend to fade without clear boundaries. Maybe there's a slow drift, there's unanswered messages, or just a vague sense that something has shifted. And without a clear ending, we're often left wondering, what did we do wrong? Replay scenarios in our minds, and we struggle to find peace. And so for me, in these last 5 years of working towards secure attachment, working towards vulnerability, especially the work that I did around Brene Brown's work in Dare to Lead and Atlas of the Heart, doing that work opened me up to emotions that I had held back on out of protection from a very young age. And in friendships, my avoidant attachment style in the past had meant that when it ended or it faded away, that was majority by choice, by my choice. And so I really, really worked hard to start to establish friendships with people that I adored and loved, and to show up with vulnerability, to let them see me cry, to let them see and experience all of who I am. And most of the time I'm quite neutralized and I'm quite regulated and I'm quite stable. Yet when this recent friendship ended this year, it put me into moments of grief that I hadn't experienced before in my life. The thing is that friendship breakups are painful, but society doesn't always validate that pain. When a romantic relationship ends, we're often encouraged to talk about it and seek support and even grieve openly. But when a friendship ends, people can just say like, oh, it's just a friend, just move on. But this dismissive attitude can make us feel like we shouldn't hurt as much as we do, leading to feelings of shame or guilt, or even just that guilt for even caring. And these feelings, internalized, misunderstood, and having nobody to talk to about it, can have you isolating yourself even further from other friendships, from your family, from relationships. And without talking about it, and I'm so, so blessed for the team that I have around me, for my husband, for people I have to talk about it. But losing a friend, especially if it's unexpected, can also impact our self-esteem and our ability to trust others. Because if someone we trusted and valued decides to walk away, or something comes in to the space and the dynamics shift, that is the only decision available at the time, it can make us question our worth or even our ability to maintain relationships. This doubt can extend to other relationships, other friendships, and even affect how we approach new connections in the future. It's almost like a ripple effect that makes us more guarded and less willing to be vulnerable. And for me, I was aware of this because I had done so much recent work on vulnerability. And though I know that past patterns came up in the experiences of withdrawing, of moving more to an avoidant attachment style when it came to meeting new people or meeting others, and at times that skeptical or negative connotation when it came to well, what's the point, or what do people want from me? And so having to spend the last 6 months choosing to be vulnerable, and lucky enough being able to be held by those around me. But the thing is that the people who are closest to me also went through this period of losing someone close to us. And I want to speak into this because it's important that these conversations start to happen, because with what's happening in the US, and I have clients over in the United States, and we have conversations about how their friendships have changed, or even the dynamics within their family, because of political reasons, because of different belief systems. This is over half of the world is going through elections this year, meaning the divide is happening more than ever before. And so this whole friendship breakup that not many of us talk about, it's happening everywhere. And I know it's not just me, but the lack of resources and the lack of conversation out there about the pain that comes with friendship breakups is something that I want to speak into more, because friendships, the family that you choose, these people, they impact our mental well-being in such profound and beautiful ways. And then when it ends, the grief can hurt. And if we aren't aware of the choices we're making, or willing to process the emotions that go with it, then it can turn us into people who don't want to be there for anybody else. It can turn us into victims. It can have us changing the way in which we live our life. And there gets to be beauty in the way we handle the grief and the breakup. And there are ways to heal. And so what can we do to heal from a friendship breakup? Well, I want to share with you a few strategies. Acknowledge the pain. Give yourself permission to feel the hurt. Just because it was just a friendship doesn't mean your emotions are invalid. Those emotions that you feel in your body, it's energy that's there for a reason. And sometimes when we start to look at and make it a feeling, we then invalidate ourselves, because we're like, well, it was just a friendship. Why do I feel grief? Grief is something I've learned about. Grief is something that I've read about. But until you feel it, you don't know what it feels like. And I know that this is all part of my growth and my experience, and it's preparing me for, as I get older, and the grief of losing people forever, losing people from death, losing people from old age, dementia or Alzheimer's, the grief that goes through when somebody doesn't remember who you are. I know that this is happening for me, not to me, but it doesn't mean that my emotions are invalid. And so acknowledge them and allow yourself the space and the time to feel them. And sometimes you've got to put them to the side and get on with life, and they'll come at different times and different experiences, and social media might bring up memories and it triggers another moment of grief and pain. But allow yourself to process that and to work through them and to go through it. Another strategy of reflecting and not ruminating. So think about what might have led to the end of the friendship without getting stuck in a loop of what ifs. Now, this is something that I spent a lot of time in. When the friendship first dissolved, and it dissolved relatively quickly, it was all these what ifs, and I went through the different stages of what I now know to be grief. And there was defense feelings put in there. There was protection. There was sadness. There was anger. And everything is a choice, right? And so when you get stuck in a loop of what if this happened? What if I did this? What if they didn't do that? What if they did do this? What if this person wasn't involved? What if this? What if? It keeps you in a loop. And what you're just doing is you're avoiding the process of going through the emotions and the feelings. And so reflect, because it's important to have and get closure where you can, but don't sit there and ruminate on it, because it is a waste of time and it hurts you even more. And the only person it's hurting is you. And sometimes you don't get those answers. And so another point in here is you have to find the closure within yourself. Because if you can't get closure from the other person, you can create your own. You can write a letter that you never send. You can journal on the event, on the process. Just do it free flowing. Let all of those emotions out. You can talk it through with someone you trust. Usually when I say talk it through with someone you trust, I would say that somebody who's not linked to that friendship, that's no longer there. Talking to somebody who's a neutral third party, whether that's a psychologist, a counselor, a coach, a mentor, but somebody who's not linked to that friendship that has broken up, because you want that non-bias, you want that trust. You've gone through a process potentially where trust has gone because of that friendship breakup, and so you need to find somebody who you have the ability to trust and know that what you share with them is not going to go back into that spiral of and that energy and that group of friendship and the drama triangle that may be there. And focus on self-care, because losing a friend can completely shake our sense of security. This friendship was one that I would say that I had invested the most of myself in, even more than the start of my marriage. What I mean by that is who I was 15, 16 years ago is different to the person I've grown up and become, and I'm so glad that I am. So when that friendship started, it started with me as who I was, and I showed up as who I was, and I was vulnerable, and I allowed myself to be open and to love and to hear and to support and to truly connect. It was absolutely a beautiful experience to do, and something that I'm still open and willing to do when it comes to creating new friendships. But when it fell through after a few years, it shook my sense of security. And what is the point of being vulnerable when people might use that against you, or you invest that amount of energy and then it leaves just like overnight, or somebody comes in and then it changes. And I talk about, perceptual positions in NLP and how powerful it is to take the lens of the third position. In this experience, when it comes to friendship, sometimes it's hard to exit the first position, which is seeing it through yourself, but then being able to go through the position 2, which is the other in the dichotomy or in the conflict, and be able to see it from their perspective. And that third perspective that helps you see it for both sides and neutralize what's happening, or understand the story more. You can do that, but it doesn't mean that it takes away from what's happening for you and your own perspective. Regrounding yourself and focusing on caring for yourself, focusing on activities that bring you joy and peace, is really important for the healing process. Each time that I've gone, these grief moments have come up in and over the last sort of 6 months, it's different things that I've required for myself to do that. Part of that is whether you have a break off social media, whether it is, you need breath work, you need massages, you need time away, you need travel, whatever it is for you that helps bring you that joy and that peace, that brings you back to yourself. And this is where I realized the power of the before list. So for those of you who've been following me for a while, the book is about to come out, but I talk about the before list of, 30 before 30 or 40 before 40, things that you want to do before you hit that next 0 birthday. And it has been such a tool in my healing through this process, because it brings me back to myself. I'm 38, so I've had this list for the last 8 years, and the things that are still remaining on it to complete, it gives me something, a task to do that I know brings me joy and peace, and that I'm excited to do. And even when I feel like I can't wake up one day and I don't want to go through it and I don't want to feel the feelings, it brings me back to self, and it helps me feel, and it helps me get through the process. And so look after yourself, because it's all that there is. In those moments, it can feel like all you have is yourself. And so care for you. And another strategy or important thing to remember is to invest in other connections. Don't isolate yourself. This is what I meant when I said about I was lucky enough to be surrounded by amazing team and amazing people. In the past versions of myself, isolating who I was or isolating and disconnecting from everything is something that I would definitely do, and I do it for days or weeks or months at times. But in this moment, I spoke about it and I didn't isolate myself, and I lent into other relationships and I reconnected with acquaintances, and I'm considering now, making new friends, because I've only gone through one major friendship breakup from my teenage years, and when we got married, she was my maid of honor, and then from the wedding onwards, the friendship it ended at the wedding basically, because of certain behaviors. But it didn't feel like this, and that's because, as I said earlier, 15 or 16 years ago, I was a different person. And so, yes, it's been 6 months. I've been going through the grieving process of this. And so allowing myself to be vulnerable, and for many of you, this may be the first time you feel like you've heard or seen me be this vulnerable. But making new friends based off of who I am, and allowing myself to know that you can only love somebody or something as deep as you choose. But the deeper that you love something or someone, the more it's going to hurt. And that's the beauty of life, right? That's the polarity, is that if you are going to love and be vulnerable and receive that love back, at times in your life, it's going to come with the complete opposite depth of that hurt. And so allow yourself to be open to new friendships. And so friendship breakups are one of those hidden pains that so many of us are going through, but we don't often talk about. At my age and in my generation, and I mean, it's happening for our children, mental health is such a major, major issue, and it feels like nobody is talking about it, and the decision makers and the politicians across the world have no idea what to do. And so we have 10-year-old and 12-year-olds deciding that killing themselves is the right answer, the right option, because their friends are telling them to. And we have men who feel like they can't talk to anybody, who we're losing at such a high rate because it's easier to just not be here. And so friendships are more important than they've ever been. But it's those friendships that are going to hurt. And we need to talk about them, because you're not on your own. As I said earlier, I knew I wasn't on mine, but the hurt is real. And so I want you to remember that you're not alone in feeling this way. And if you're dealing with the loss of a friend, know that it's okay to grieve. Give yourself the permission to do so. And that grief will come in ebbs and flows, in waves, and allow yourself the time and space to go through it when it comes. Because healing takes time, and with patience and self-compassion and the support of others, as I know I will, you will find peace again. I have loved the experience of this friendship ending. And I know that that's weird to say, as you've seen me cry and stop and do everything through this episode, but I'm so grateful for the experience, because it shows me how much I've grown as a human being, and how much I can love, and how much I can be open and allow myself to be loved, and know that the hurt and these feelings of grief that I go through, they are absolutely worth every single moment of the joy and the love that I got in that friendship. And so I'm forever thankful for it and for the experience. But I want to speak about it more. I want more people to realize that friendship breakups hurt just as much as real relationship breakups. And so if you've enjoyed this episode, if this has resonated with you, please share it with somebody who you might think needs to hear this. And as always, please take care of yourself and others, And remember that every connection in life, whether it lasts forever or not, has a purpose. Because everything happens for us, not to us. And to all of those people in my life that I've ever been friends with, and they may not be in my life anymore, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for allowing me to be me, for holding the space of being my projection, my reflection. I'm grateful for every single moment that I've had.